everybody. Thank you for joining and welcome to Ambush on Air. I'm your host, Sam Bush, and I am so excited to bring this podcast to life and to spend some time talking about B2B. Episode are my first, but wanted to do just a little origin story, a little bit about my background, my experience, and then talk a little bit about my career and my Google and trial by fire upbringing in marketing, and then talk about some of my values when it comes to modern marketing in 2024 and beyond, and then get into a little bit of like why we're here, why the podcast is launching, and then go into some follow-ups and next steps. So I am so excited to kick this off. And thank you guys for all of you out there who pushed me to bring this to life. It's been a long time in my head, and I finally got it out of the Google Sheet and into the podcast version. So let's start with who I am. So I'm Sam Bush. For those of you who might not know me, I am a B2B SaaS marketer. I've been in marketing for about 10 years on the brand side, and then a few years prior to that in agency. So come from a line of a different kind of variety of marketing types. So how did I get into marketing? This is like, I think the most interesting thing because so many marketers out there have a similar story. And if you do, I'd love to talk to you about it. Because I find that marketers often have a wavy way they got into it. So for me, I actually went to a Project Adventure elementary school where everything was, hands-on learning and more like self-service, like how do you want to learn kind of experience. And I really thrived in that environment. I feel like it really built my problem-solving abilities as a child. And I think that's actually like a big thing that has made me who I am. But circle to my college days years ago, long time ago, I went to school for painting and art. I've got a bachelor's in art and a minor in graphic design. I ended up right out of college thinking I could just like be a full-time artist. And if you followed me for a while, you remember my Zoom background of the past. And all the pieces I made. This is a temporary spot. I'm in the middle of a transition. So some of this stuff is here, and you'll see it evolve as you look at the podcast if you're watching on the video side. But after college, I was working, selling paintings and being a server bartender and having a good time. And then one of my friends from college actually reached out and said, I'm working at this marketing agency. There's like 30 of us. We're a fun company, really trying to grow. We're a mile from your house, and we need some people who want to like have an entry-level marketing job. So if you're interested, roll up. So I did. I went and started the job 2 weeks later. I was focused at the time on being like an entry-level strategist for insurance agencies. In my time in the agency, I went from that to content strategy and running a small team of content strategists. My background has always been content at the core. And that's continued to be a big part of what I enjoy in marketing now and in something I feel I strive at or strive in. So circle to kind of a few years after that, I was looking to get into B2B SaaS specifically and not just B2B. And getting into the software space, I'm very much a tech girl. I love, any and all new technology and learning the ins and outs. I was the one who was coding my MySpace with the music, if you know. But so went from that to managing content at a small B2B logistics company here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm based. I wrote hundreds of pieces of content in my time there. Moved from the content marketing manager into the director of marketing for a little under 2 years in that role there. which we'll get into in some of kind of my values that I mentioned in the beginning, but really built a ton of confidence in my brand, confidence in content, and confidence in demand generation and partnerships. I mean, my whole job was really, how do we get content in front of the right people at the right time? And what does it take to do that? And building a team of an army to help do that. So really, really had a blast there. If you know me from that time, you know it was a little volatile towards the end because we got acquired and things were changing rapidly. So I decided to leave to pursue a role in program strategy. So marketing program strategy really is a step above campaigns, which we'll get into in another podcast I've got lined up for us. A campaign is like, we've got a national holiday for something. Let's make a video about it. Let's make an email go out. Let's have some social. Let's do an ad. But a program is a step above that. And it's really like, what are those main common threads that you want your personas or your prospects to hear and know about you in the background of all of your messaging and all of your communications and in all of the ways you kind of go to market. So like I said, we'll get into that another time, but that was a pinnacle fun part of my career. Currently in partnerships, focused on ERP partners. If you know me at all, I am pretty fun in the Microsoft Dynamics community. I've really built a really happy life in the Microsoft ecosystem, which we'll get into as well. But that's kind of how I got here. So my career's been a little bit wacky and a little bit wavy, but I think that's what really makes a good marketer is multiple experiences in multiple role types. I have been called the Sam of all trades because I truly have kind of a true T marketer experience behind me. And I think that's what I enjoy the most is that multi-tiered, wearing a lot of hats sort of function. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to tell you what I value now in marketing. It has evolved so much, but I really wanted to call out 4 specific things that I see as my personal values as a marketing strategist, specifically in B2B software. Transparency is number 1. That sounds like an easy thing everyone's doing, but it really is at the core of what I believe is what makes your brand stand out in 2024. Things like putting your pricing on your website or saying honestly what you can't do, just as much as you say what you can do. From a seller-free economy is something we'll talk about too, but in the way we kind of think about B2B purchasing in 2024, it's evolved so much in the last 3 years, just with the uprise of millennials being your B2B signers. We'll get into those stats too, because I've got a great podcast lined up for that. But transparency is key to something that I want to make sure in the businesses I work for and with, that transparency is apparent to our buyers. Number 2 is mentorship. I am the biggest proponent of mentorship in marketing. I think you can learn everything you can from your manager, and you can learn everything you can by Google and trial and fire. But having someone who has been in your seat or been in experiences in rooms that you want to be in is the best way to learn. At least for me and my personality type, but I think it's for a lot of people at least worth a try. So I had a mentor who was a boss at the time who then retired and turned into my mentor. I remember so many vivid conversations with him and I. He's not a marketer, but he kind of ran the ship at one of my prior companies. And he basically taught me how to be silent and how to listen. If you know my personality at all, you know I have something to say about everything, and I'm very opinionated, if you will, which you'll hear in the pod as well. But I just said the pod. Ooh, I'm one of those now, the podcast. Okay, so mentorship. I currently mentor 2 ladies in the channel marketing kind of demand generation space, and I have found it to be the most fulfilling thing for me personally because I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me. It's definitely a bilateral relationship, and I think If you're looking for feedback on how do you talk to your manager about something, or feedback on how to ask for a raise, or feedback on a campaign, even having a mentor in your belt that you really trust is such a nice, comfortable relationship. So I encourage you to look for a mentor. I know it can be uncomfortable to ask somebody to be your mentor. I'm going to do a podcast on that as well, I think, because I have been approached directly and been asked, and it's been such a good feeling for me. But it's been a really great relationship. And then I have approached others as well. So it's kind of a fun little figure out what works best for you kind of thing. Then my number 3, so I'm going to do 4 values. So we did transparency, mentorship, now demand generation over all else. I think if your marketing team in 2024 and B2B SaaS is not focused on middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel transaction activity in your marketing, you're missing the mark. If you're focused on that top of funnel, hope for the best marketing strategy and that lead generation forte, you're missing the mark. You're missing it. People are bombarded with content and with emails and ads and everything across the board from companies just like you and hundreds of others. That top of funnel activity isn't as impactful as it used to be. So how can we drive middle of funnel activity to close business? That's what I think is the most valuable focus. And then my last one is, I think something I've really learned in the company I'm at currently, which is you need to be in service of your product. I've worked for organizations that are very sales led, where the sale comes first, and then I've worked in organizations where the product leads the sales, so product led growth. And I think as a marketer, if you're not focused on product-led growth in your marketing activities, you're missing some of that funnel activity you could be focused on. We've got a couple programs here that we run around product-led growth to entice and engage specifically customers and upsell opportunities within the product itself. And I think learning as a marketer to be a steward of your product is something that will take you further than other marketers. And happy to talk about that offline, or if you catch me at a trade show, would love to chat more. So that's kind of my career, my values, who I am as a marketing strategist, but wanted to talk about why we are here. So I have been kind of a big personality a lot of my life, and feel like that's been a big driver in some of my fear in getting in public is, am I going to say too much? Am I going to say not enough? Am I going to, embarrass myself or something? But about a year ago, I had a sort of mentor, he knows who he is, who reached out and said, why aren't you doing your own speaking sessions? You are a thought leader in B2B marketing, and you really have a lot to say. I don't know why you're not doing it. And I candidly said to him that I was afraid. Like, I'm afraid when I get in my groove, I'm going to just, say something I shouldn't, or get too in the weeds that people are like, man, that was like really daunting to listen to. But he encouraged me to just submit one and see how it goes. And that was a little over a year ago. And since then, I've done about 15 speaking engagements in person and a couple webinars. I'm on like a road show with a couple of my girlfriends in the marketing space around marketing to generations. And I am having a blast. And this momentum is something I want to continue for my own personal life, and finding the joy in talking about B2B marketing at scale with my friends, my peers, and others that I don't know yet. So what are we going to talk about on the podcast? I know if you read my little blurb, you see I want to talk about demand generation. I want to talk about breaking the mold. What are you doing that's different than other marketers out there to really make your product sing and stand out? I want to talk about ads. Do we still trust ads as buyers now? What's your POV on that? How does it work for your business? What are you doing different in ad tech if you're a software company? Then something that I'm super, super bullish on is how we see a seller-free or a self-service economy rolling out in the B2B space. If you've heard any of my speaking sessions lately, you know I'm a little bullish on the fact that I think the consultative approach to sales is where B2B is going to land. I do have a lot of research on it and things that we can talk about in another session, but those are some of the topics that I think I would love to see brought to life in the podcast over time. So I am going to give you guys a little sneak peek. I've got a few lined up, so let me just pull up who I've got. I have got one on personal brand. I've got one on one of my friends who owns a PR and demand gen agency. She's launching a book. I've got that lined up as well. And then a couple with some Microsoft partners around selling through and to as an ISV with a reseller. So we've got some really cool stuff on the docket, and I am very, very excited. Open to feedback as well. This is a work in progress, like I said, and I am just excited to share all my thoughts and feelings and research with you guys. And I hope this is something that you find enjoyable as well. And again, thanks for joining. And if you remember me from my early blog days, you'll remember I signed off my blog Party on Ambush. So I'm trying to think of another thing to say that's similar. But for now, I will just leave you with thank you for joining Ambush on Air. I'm Sam Bush, your host, and I am so grateful you listened today. Like, follow, subscribe, and be on the lookout for more and more to come from Ambush on Air. So that's all for now. Party on.